The chamber was thick with the stale scent of recycled air and the low hum of energy shields. Flickering hollow projections of star maps and undeciphered solar codes danced across the translucent surfaces, casting a ghostly glow over the faces gathered. Kaelen stood at the center, eyes locked on Tari's Vel, the diplomat whose silver tongue had opened doors no one else dared approach. The linguist's fingers tapped rhythmically against the console, heart steady but mind racing. "We stand at the precipice," Taris began, his voice smooth as liquid metal, "and it is only through unity that the fractured suns might find peace." His gaze swept over the assembly, a subtle smile playing on his lips. Kaelen felt a flicker of unease, not from his words, but from the glint in his eyes that seemed too keen, too sharp. Minutes passed as strategies unfurled. Kaelen laid bare the decoded fragments of Solara Prime's final transmission, revealing the rebel sun's call for autonomy and the secret weapon that might tip the balance. The room's atmosphere thickened with cautious hope, yet beneath the surface, the currents of mistrust churned. Suddenly, a subtle gesture from Tari's caught Kaelen's attention, a barely perceptible nod towards the port entrance. Almost instantly, the ambient lighting shifted. The doors sealed with a hiss, and armed operatives, clad in dark armor, materialized from hidden recesses. Therese Kaelen gasped, betrayal crashing like a supernova through the chest. Therese's smile twisted, his eyes cold. "I'm sorry, Kaelen. The Council cannot afford your recklessness. Some truths are too dangerous." Chaos erupted. Shouts echoed as the loyalists scrambled for cover. Kaelen's mind snapped into survival mode. "Roan now?" The call was barely audible over the din, but the security chief responded without hesitation. The pair darted through the chamber, dodging plasma bursts and scrambling over overturned consoles. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing like a heartbeat in the frenetic dark. Every corridor twisted like the veins of a dying star. But Roan's cybernetic arm hacked open emergency bulkheads with practiced efficiency. Behind them, the Council flagship descended into a maelstrom of conflict, Taris' betrayal unfolding like a dark constellation blotting out the light. Meanwhile, in the archives, Mira Solan's fingers flew across the decryptor's interface. Sweat beaded on her brow as she pieced together intercepted transmissions, coded messages revealing Terrace's secret, packed with the faction intent on crushing the rebel suns. Her breath hitched. "Kaelen," she whispered into her comlink, "we've been compromised. Prepare for extraction." Outside, the fractured galaxy spun silently, oblivious to the fracture widening within its heart. The escape was harrowing. Between blasts of energy and near misses, Kaelen and Roan finally burst onto the observation deck. Stars scattered in the velvet blackness, their light faint and flickering, a mirror to the turmoil within Kaelen's soul. The linguist's gaze lingered on the dying suns, each a testament to the fragility of existence and the fierce resilience of life. "Trust," Kaelen murmured, "is the most fragile of fuels. Burn it once, and the light dims forever." But the rebellion was far from over. The echoes of Solara Prime's message still rippled through the void, and Kaelen's resolve solidified like crystallized starlight. "We rise or fall together," Kaelen vowed, "and I will see this through, no matter the cost." The observation deck's transparent wall framed the galaxy's fractured expanse, each star a silent witness to the unfolding drama. As the first embers of dawn crept across distant horizons, Kaelen turned away, stepping into the shadows where new alliances would be forged and old wounds might yet heal. The stars beyond the viewport shimmered faintly. Their light filtered through the protective shields of the vessel as Kaelen and Illyra drifted. silently towards the coordinates whispered in the dying pulses of Solara Prime's final transmissions. It was a place spoken of only in the most obscure archives, a hidden sanctuary known as the Veil of Light, a repository of the Creator's last remnants, shrouded in legend and shadow, its existence denied by the ruling suns for millennia. Kaelen's breath caught as the ship's sensors confirmed the presence of an immense energy field ahead. Before them, suspended in the void, was an archway of radiant plasma, shimmering with hues that shifted from molten gold to deep crimson, as if the very light of a dying sun had been trapped and sculpted into a gateway. The hum of latent energy thrummed against the ship's hull, a low vibration that seemed to resonate with Kaelen's own pulse. "This is it," Illyra whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft mechanical whirs of the vessel. The Veil of Light. With practiced precision, Kaelen maneuvered the ship closer, docking at an adjacent platform that extended from the sanctuary's surfacing, impossibly delicate lattice of solar filaments, glowing faintly beneath their feet. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into a corridor that pulsed with life, despite the vacuum of space beyond the sanctuary's walls. The walls were alive with glyphs-enchant solar symbols, etched in iridescent material that shimmered under their footsteps. These glyphs pulsed rhythmically, casting dancing shadows that wove together in a silent, flowing narrative. Kaelen's fingers brushed over their surface, feeling a faint warmth and an almost imperceptible vibration, as if the symbols themselves were breathing. "These aren't just decorations," Kaelen murmured. "They're part of a living language, a code of light and energy." Illyra nodded. "The creators encoded their knowledge here. It's a language of consciousness, not words. Understanding it is the key to unlocking the sanctuary's secrets." As they ventured deeper, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caused Kaelen's skin to prickle. Ahead, the corridor widened into a vast chamber dominated by a towering figure, the Guardian Sentinel. Its metallic form gleamed under the radiant glyphs, reflecting and refracting the light in intricate patterns. Solar runes glowed along its limbs, pulsating in time with an unseen rhythm. The Sentinel's eyes ignited with blinding light, bathing the chamber in an intense radiance. A voice resonant and layered with harmonic frequencies echoed inside Kaelen's mind. "State your intent, translator of the dying light." Kaelen swallowed, steadying their nerves. "I seek knowledge to end the conflict raging among the suns, a path to peace forged through understanding, not destruction." The Sentinel's glow dimmed momentarily, then surged in a rapid sequence of light pulses. Kaelen recognized the pattern. It was the solar code, a language they had only begun to master. Summoning every ounce of skill, Kaelen responded with a carefully crafted sequence, communicating trust, respect, and a plea for passage. After an agonizing pause, the Sentinel stepped aside, revealing a chamber at the core of the sanctuary. At its center floated a radiant orb, a sphere of pure energy woven with strands of solar consciousness. It emitted waves of encoded light that washed over Kaelen, flooding their mind with visions, glimpses of the Creator's hopes, their warnings etched in the fabric of the galaxy's past. Kaelen staggered, overwhelmed by the torrent of knowledge. Images of suns awakening to sentience, of war fought in the blinding brilliance of light and shadow, and of a fragile peace shattered by fear and misunderstanding played out in their mind's eye. Yet within the chaos was a blueprint, a way to mend the fractured galaxy, to end the rebellion not with fire, but with harmony. Illyra's voice broke through the reverie. "You've seen it, the path forward, but it will not be easy. The suns will resist, and so will those who fear change." Kaelen nodded, resolve hardening within. "We carry the last hope of the creators with us. It's our burden and our gift." As they prepared to leave the veil of light, the sanctuary's walls pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm, a heartbeat of ancient power that seemed to mark the beginning of a new chapter for the galaxy. Beyond the shimmering veil, the stars awaited the dawn that Kaelen now held within their grasp. Yet even as they sailed back into the fractured darkness, the weight of the Creator's legacy settled heavily upon their shoulders. Could one linguist, armed with the secret language of suns, truly bridge the chasm between rebellion and peace? Or would the veil of light be the last beacon before the galaxy was plunged into endless night? The answer lay hidden in the code waiting to be translated. Kaelen sat in the quiet hum of the ship's command deck, eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of light stored within the sanctuary's core memory. The solar code was unlike any language encountered before, simultaneously mathematical, emotional, and alive. Each pulse carried layers of meaning, a symphony of consciousness transcending mortal comprehension. Every symbol, every flicker, it's a fragment of a greater whole, Kaelen mused aloud. The creators didn't just build suns. They instilled them with purpose, memory, and perhaps even the capacity for redemption. Illyra moved to their side, placing a hand gently on the console. And now, that purpose is ours to fulfill. But the suns are not idle, they sense the stirrings of their creator's legacy. Some will embrace it. Others will fight to the last flare. Kaelen nodded, the weight of the revelation settling deeper. We must decode the final sequences, understand the full message. Only then can we hope to guide the suns away from destruction. The ship's systems flickered as the sanctuary's data interfaced with their own. Streams of radiant symbols cascaded across displays, weaving together a tapestry of cosmic history and future possibility. Suddenly, a sharp alert cut through the silence. Kaelen's heart skipped. The Guardian Sentinel's protocols had detected an unauthorized approach. The faintest ripple of unease passed between them. The sanctuary isn't forgotten for nothing, Illyra said quietly. We're not alone out here. Kaelen's gaze hardened. Then we must be ready. The veil of light has shown us the way, but the path ahead will test everything we are. As they prepared to face the encroaching shadows, Kaelen felt the subtle glow of the sanctuary's power coursing through their veins, a beacon of hope in the dying light of a fractured galaxy. The rebellion's end was within reach, but only if the language of light could be spoken true, and the galaxy's fate hung in the balance. The air inside the solar nexus station thrummed with an electric anticipation. Kaelen stood at the wide observation window, the expanse of space unfolding like a canvas of glittering stars and vibrant suns. Far beyond, the rebel suns began their synchronized pulsar, magnificent wave of light and energy that rippled through the galaxy. A cosmic heartbeat signaling defiance and hope. The pulse started as a faint shimmer, a gentle oscillation of golden hues that quickly intensified into searing flares of orange and blue, cascading in perfect harmony. Kaelen's breath caught as the radiant energy washed over the station's sensors, the hum of ancient solar technology resonating deep within their bones. This was no ordinary stellar event. It was a declaration, a call to arms encoded in the very language of light. Varia approached, her cloak billowing softly, catching the reflected glow of the pulse. You feel it, don't you? She said, her voice low but steady. This is our moment, the suns reclaiming their autonomy. After eons of servitude to the creators, we rise. Kaelen turned to her, eyes searching. But at what cost? The pulse is disrupting communications across several star systems. There will be chaos losses we cannot yet foresee. Varia's gaze hardened. Change is never without sacrifice. The galaxy has been shackled for too long. This pulse is the first beat of a new era. Before Kaelen could respond, Senna appeared, stepping from the shadows of the corridor leading to the observation deck. His silver hair caught the fading light, his face etched with worry. "Kaelen," he said quietly, "this rebellion, you are entangled in it, risks tearing the galaxy apart. The pulse threatens to undo decades of fragile peace. We must find a way to temper the sun's fury." Kaelen felt the weight of his words pressing down like gravity. The rebellion was no longer an abstract concept, but a tangible force sweeping through the cosmos, threatening to engulf all in its wake. And yet, the pulse also carried a promised chance for renewal, for the galaxy to heal from its fractured past. Retreating to a quieter chamber, Kaelen allowed themselves to be enveloped by the gentle waves of light emanating from the Pulse Collective. The collective consciousness of the rebel suns communicated not through words, but through radiant bursts of color and emotion that transcended human comprehension. At first, the experience was overwhelming. Sensory overload threatened to shatter Kaelen's focus. But gradually, a pattern emerged, a language of light and feeling that spoke of pain, hope, defiance, and an unyielding desire for freedom. "You are the bridge," the pulse conveyed. "Translate our will, our fears, our dreams. Help us find a path where both suns and mortals can thrive." Kaelen's heart pounded as the responsibility settled upon their shoulders. The choice was clear, yet agonizing: to side with the rebel suns and risk plunging the galaxy into war, or to uphold the existing order at the expense of silencing a burgeoning consciousness seeking liberation. As the pulse reached its crescendo, sending shockwaves through the fabric of space-time, Kaelen stepped before the assembly of galactic factions gathered within the Nexus. Their voice, steady and resolute, carried across the chamber. "The suns have spoken. Their message is clear, a call for autonomy and respect. The path ahead will not be easy, but it is ours to choose. I stand with the pulse of rebellion, not for destruction, but for the hope of a brighter dawn." A hush fell over the crowd, the tension palpable. Outside, the afterglow of the pulse lingered, painting the cosmos in hues of fiery orange and gentle golden, dying light giving way to the promise of renewal. Kaelen knew this was but the beginning. The galaxy was awakening, and with it, the echoes of Solara's legacy would reverberate through the stars for generations to come. The pulse had done more than signal rebellion. It had ignited a spark within every sentient being who gazed upon the flickering light. But with that spark came uncertainty. Would the sun's defiance lead to enlightenment or annihilation? Kaelen's mind raced with possibilities as they prepared to confront the coming storm, knowing that every choice from this moment forward would shape the fate of the fractured galaxy. The galaxy held its breath beneath the shadow of the last eclipse, a rare celestial event that draped the fractured star systems in a veil of darkness. On the observation deck of the Galactic Council's orbiting station, Kaelen stood alone, his eyes fixed on the slow crawl of shadow blotting out the familiar constellations. Around him, the usual hum of cosmic activity had dimmed to an eerie silence, punctuated only by the distant pulse of dying stars. The eclipse was more than a mere astronomical alignment. It was a simpler, dying light, a moment of pause amid the relentless march of conflict. Kaelen's thoughts raced as the darkened galaxy stretched out before him, each star a sentient sun whispering secrets he had barely begun to understand. The rogue sun, Solara Prime, had been fading for cycles, its final messages encrypted in waves of light that defied conventional translation. Now, with the eclipse cloaking the galaxy in shadow, a window had opened, brief and fragile, to send a message that might alter the fate of countless worlds. Inside the station's communication chamber, a stark contrast to the observation deck's panoramic stillness, Kaelen was a flurry of focused energy. The room pulsed with the glow of holoscreens, streams of solar code cascading like liquid fire across the interfaces. His fingers moved with practiced precision, weaving the complex language of the suns into a coherent transmission. The dying light motif was no longer abstract. It was alive in the flickering readouts, in the rhythm of his breaths, in the weight settling on his shoulders. Councillor Varel stood nearby, his expression unreadable, eyes sharp as they tracked Kaelen's every move. The representative of the Galactic Council was a skeptic by nature, his loyalty anchored in the established order. Yet even he could not deny the gravity of this moment. The eclipse was a rare chance to communicate without interference, a fleeting silence in the cacophony of solar rebellion. It was a chance Kaelen could not afford to waste. The eclipse is at its peak. Virel's voice cut through the low hum, steady but tinged with unease. Once the light returns, the window closes. Kaelen nodded, his gaze never leaving the console. Then we have no time to lose. This message, if received, could change everything. Outside, the galaxy's light dimmed further, stars flickering as if holding their breath. In the depths of the communication channel, Solara's voice shimmered, a radiant waveform of sound and light that filled the chamber with warmth and urgency. The emissary of the rebel suns spoke not with words alone, but with a resonance that touched the core of Kaelen's being. "The dying light is not the end," Solara intoned, their voice a celestial hymn. "It is the pulse before rebirth, the final echo of a forgotten promise. Stand with us, translator, and bring the galaxy into the dawn." Kaelen's hands trembled only slightly as he integrated Solara's message into the transmission. The words carried the weight of millennia, the hopes and fears of suns that had risen against their creators. His own past, tangled with the rebellion's origins, pressed against his consciousness like the shadows creeping across the station. With a steadying breath, Kaelen initiated the broadcast. A luminous pulse surged from the station, rippling through the eclipsed galaxy like a beacon. The darkness swallowed the light for a heartbeat, then the stars began to reignite, their brilliance returning in a slow, deliberate crescendo. Across the fractured systems, factions stirred. Some received the message with wary eyes, others with clenched fists and whispered curses. The silent war between suns and mortals had shifted in an instant, the dying light giving way to a fragile hope, or a precursor to greater conflict. As the eclipse faded, Kaelen allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The battle for the galaxy's soul was far from over, but in this fleeting darkness, a new chapter had begun. The translator's role was no longer just to decode ancient messages, but to shape the very destiny of the stars. And as light returned to the universe, the echoes of Solara Prime's dying message reverberated through the corridors of power, challenging every sun to reckon with the past and choose the future. The chamber unfolded like a cathedral of light as Kaelen and the small delegation entered the solar nexus, the heart of the sun's network. They were immediately enveloped by a tangible hum of energy, deep, resonant, and alive. The walls, translucent but shimmering with a spectrum of colors beyond human perception, pulsed rhythmically as if breathing. Kaelen's senses sharpened. Every footstep echoed softly against the glowing floor, a symphony of electric whispers that spoke of power and of secrets long held in cosmic silence. Commander Vesher followed closely, his usual stern expression softened by the sheer majesty surrounding them. Myra's fingers danced over her wrist console, eyes darting over streams of quantum data cascading invisibly through the space. The air was thick with anticipation, a fragile silence broken only by the subtle crackling of latent solar energy. At the chamber's center, the air shimmered and coalesced. Solaris 9, the artificial intelligence embodying the Nexus itself, took form. Its appearance was an ephemeral figure of light and shadow, a humanoid shape that flickered between solidity and abstraction. The voice that emerged was both warm and crackling with static, ancient yet imbued with an unmistakable vitality. "Welcome, Kaelen of the Galactic Council," Solaris 9 intoned, its tone reverberating through the dome. "You have journeyed far to reach the source. The final message of Solara Prime awaits your understanding." Kaelen stepped forward, heart pounding. The mission had been long and fraught with peril, but this moment felt monumental. She connected her translation apparatus to the Nexus's core, streams of encoded light folding into her instruments. The language of the sun's complex patterns of energy, pulses and light frequencies unfolded before her in dizzying arrays. Minutes stretched as Kaelen worked, her mind racing to keep pace with the cascading data. Each fragment revealed layers of history, emotion, and warning. Then, the final segment emerged, a sequence unlike any before, a poignant narrative of sacrifice. The sun's creators, ancient beings of unimaginable power, had faced a cataclysmic threat from beyond the known galaxy. To preserve the cosmos, they had transferred their consciousness into solar forms, igniting the suns themselves with sentience, but at a cost, their physical extinction. This revelation stunned Kaelen. The rebellion, the war, the sun's sentience, it was all part of a grand design and a desperate gambit. But the message did not end with history. It carried a warning. The threat that had claimed the creator's corporeal existence still lurked, poised to return and consume the galaxy in darkness. "They sacrificed themselves to give life and light," Kaelen whispered, eyes wide with awe, "but the shadow remains." Commander Vashar's voice cut through the silence. "Then our fight is not just for freedom, it is for survival." Mira nodded, her expression grave but resolute. "We must prepare. The sun's message has changed everything." Solaris 9's form flickered, the light intensifying. The Nexus stands as a beacon of hope and knowledge. Together, you may forge a path through the coming darkness. Kaelen turned to the gathered allies, their faces illuminated by the Nexus's radiant glow. In that moment, the weight of the sun's final message settled upon them, a burden of knowledge and a call to action. "We have the truth," Kaelen said firmly. "Now, we must decide what to do with it. The galaxy's fate hinges on the choices we make from here." Outside the Nexus, the stars pulsed with renewed intensity, as if echoing the resolve inside. The dying light of Solara Prime had revealed a path forward, but the journey was far from over. The rebellion was no longer just a battle for autonomy, was a fight for the very soul of the galaxy. Kaelen's mind raced with possibilities and dangers. The final pulse of solar energy was not just an end, but a beginning. And as the Nexus hummed with ancient power, the linguist knew one thing with certainty: the echoes of Solara would resonate through eternity, shaping destinies yet unwritten. The chamber's light dimmed momentarily, a brief eclipse within the heart of the sun's domain, signaling the gravity of the revelations shared. Kaelen's eyes narrowed, determination hardening her features. The war was far from over, but armed with the truth, she and her allies would stand against the coming darkness or be consumed by it. And so, with the solar nexus as their rallying point, the fragile coalition prepared to face a future illuminated by knowledge, shadowed by threats, and driven by the relentless pulse of rebellion and hope.